and they're off.
Further Faster, the best independently owned outdoor store in the known universe. Whether you're heading out on climbing, paddling, tramping, or running adventures, look no farther than Further Faster for all your gear and expertise needs over the late summer and early autumn, the best time of year. Head over to 57A Buchan Street, Sydenham, Ōtautahi, Christchurch, or hit them up at furtherfaster.co.nz.
It goes something like further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Oh, further, faster, there in Christchurch. Rocky is hairy and so is Badger. Jules is nice and Jacob is delicious. Go to further, faster now.
Dirt Church Radio. Episode 364 of the Dirt Church Radio Trail and Ultra Marathon Running Podcast. Kia ora, I'm Matt Raymond, and just a quick top today. I'm rolling solo. I've just had the most incredible conversation that I'm so excited to bring you with the legendary Jack Harris. Jack is the current Athletics New Zealand 50k trail champ. He was on the New Zealand team last year at Canfranc, and what a legend. Stoked gets chucked around too much in this culture, but we just had an incredible conversation. And if you want to think about it's not steady forward progress towards a goal and no flash in the pan, no savant, just hard work and an awesome attitude, then stay tuned for this. You can hear by the tone of my voice that I'm absolutely psyched. So stick around, but first, we'll do this.
It's the greatest run ever. It's the greatest run ever.
Greatest Run Ever, which is the part of the show where we ask you to write into us and tell us your greatest run ever. It doesn't have to be a race or a mountain summit. It might just be a run around the block, something that's sung to you for some reason. Send them in to us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. Now, this one is from Sam Howard, and I scanned it before, and it looks pretty fun. He goes, Kia ora team, this is my greatest run ever. My greatest run wasn't a race finish, a mountain summit, or some epic trail mission. It was 126 laps of a school track. In March 2025, I joined my kids' primary school team for the Relay for Life in Palmerston North. I volunteered for the graveyard shift, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., figuring the night shift might be the quiet one. It wasn't. It was laughter, tired legs, and that strange energy that only seems to appear at 3 a.m. when a group of people are trying to keep something going together. It was a hoot. Then the rest of the year rolled on. Work overseas, an Achilles injury that forced a lot of patience, a long day out at Blue Lake 24-hour challenge, running, recovering, running again. Eventually, an email popped into my inbox, Relay for Life 2026. This time I thought, why not go all in and run the full 24 hours? So the training started. Nothing dramatic, just the slow, steady build that runners know well. A bit further each week, time on feet, letting the body adapt. One day I was chatting with one of the deputy principals at the school and floated an idea. What if I ran around the school track for the whole school day? It would be training for me, and maybe the school could throw something in the newsletter to build a bit of buzz for the fundraiser. That was the plan. What actually happened was something else entirely. The idea snowballed. Suddenly there was a colouring competition, a cheer squad practicing chants, students planning aid stations, classes scheduling time to come out and run laps with me. What I thought might be a quiet training day turned into a full school event. At 8:45 a.m, I started running. Within seconds, there were more than 20 kids running beside me, questions flying. Why are you doing this? How many laps will you run? Do you ever get tired? The excitement was contagious. Kids would peel off after a lap or two, then a new group would jump in. All day the track buzzed with curiosity, laughter, and the thump of trainers and crocs in sport mode, keeping pace for a few laps. As the hours ticked by, the commentary got better. How many laps will he do? He's the Ashurst David Goggins. Wow, he's pretty fit for a dad. Lap 67 got the excitement really going, with shouts of 6-7 echoing across the field. And really, this is Matt talking now. Who knows what that means? I don't. And also, Sam, I got to say, if you don't have the title of the Ashurst David Goggins on your LinkedIn, what are you even doing with your life? By the final hour, the atmosphere had built into something special. At 2:45 p.m, the entire school came out and lined the track, hundreds of kids forming a corridor of high fives, cheers, and chants as I ran the final laps. It was loud, it was chaotic, it was pure joy. The whole point of the day was to show Manawaroa resilience, to show that sometimes you keep going when things get uncomfortable, and to help the students feel part of raising money for a cause that matters. But somewhere along the way, it became something else. A community moment, a school track, 126 laps, and easily the greatest run I've ever had so far. Ngā mihi, Sam. Sure, that was awesome. Sam, thank you so much. And the rest of you, we've had a steady trickle over the summer months. Still not enough for one to feel comfortable in the greatest run ever futures market. So please, 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 please send them in to us. Greatest run ever at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. Thank you. Right, let's get into it. My conversation with the incredible Jack Harris. Now we're in the right room. Jack Harris, kia ora, welcome to Dirt Church Radio.
Hey, yeah, really excited to be here.
How are you, man?
I am good. Yeah, coming to you from Auckland. Have been in a bit of a funny, I guess, running period lately. Been a bit injured, so that's always tough in the middle of the season, but it is, yeah, life's good. Life is good.
I'm sorry that you're injured. That's hard enough for a citizen athlete, but the last time I saw you, you just won the New Zealand, I can't even, it's got such a clunky title. What is it? The Athletics New Zealand Trail Champions bracket, long form bracket, comma 50K. Who knows?
I don't know. Yeah, it's even more confusing than that, eh? Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly. I think it was just New Zealand 50K champs, which is maybe typically run on the road, and maybe they sort of threw it into a trail race because we also have other New Zealand trail champs. So don't ask me to explain exactly what is going on there, but I'll take it. I don't make the rules.
No, you don't make the rules, but you did. You made the day and you got the dub. But look, just quickly, what's up with you? Are you okay with your injury?
Yeah, everything's okay. I think it was probably I was sort of half expecting for something to crop up. It had been sort of all go for the last year or two, so I sort of knew at some point that the brain and the body was going to say no, and so that came around. So I was probably just paying my dues, I think. But no, we're all good.
Did you do the thing that some people talk about, which is after you've had a big victory or a big, a success, you kind of take a step back, plot your year, and see where it goes, and spend some time recovering, or did you just charge through?
Church Radio.
No, it was just sort of charge on through. Yeah, I guess we were coming right into New Zealand summer, so it had been a big winter of things, and then yeah, it's pretty hard to say no when summer's rolling around and race season's there, and you can spend time out on the trails. So no, it was just put the head down and hope that nothing happened.
And so how long's your recovery looking?
Yeah, we're nearly back. So yeah, it's been a lot of time on the treadmill and on the bike. I got sunburnt the other day because I hadn't been outside enough, which yeah, probably tells you how much time I have been spending inside.
So you just got sunburned just being outside?
Yeah, I mean, I went to the beach and I was the only one in the group to get sunburnt. So
right.
Yeah, that probably is not really that's not middle of summer behaviour, that.
It's not. Having said that, our sun is brutal.
Yeah.
Even if you go to Australia, you're like, wait, what's that lack of uncomfortable burning? It's something's
Why can't I
changed.
smell myself burning? Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, look, we're getting a little bit over our skis as I am wont to do, but just let's take it back. I'd like to know, what was your first taste of sport growing up?
Yeah, I guess pretty like classic kid in New Zealand. I grew up in a little town just out of Dunedin called Waitati, and played rugby, cricket, sort of anything I could get my hands on, from sort of as young as I can remember.
In a little town, the rugby team probably was the cricket team, right?
Yeah, we didn't even have enough people for a rugby team or a cricket team, so we had to go to other little towns and combine to make up a team.
When did that translate into running? When did you notice that you had the wheels?
Yeah, I guess like that might be a little bit different. I mean, I remember back when I used to listen to Dirt Church radio so often, the story would sort of be like, got into trail running and did really well immediately, and often that person had been, had an athletics background, or it was their first race and they went really well. And I guess I didn't come from any sort of running background, and it was, I don't know, I would have been 7 or 8 years ago that I actually went to the Routeburn Track one day. Just life was a bit hard at the time, and I decided that I just needed to get in the hills and go hiking, which I'd done a bit of growing up. I'm sure that's kind of familiar to a lot of people. You just need to go and be outdoors. So I drove up there, slept in the car, started walking the track. The plan was just to walk the track, and I got a couple of Ks in, and someone else walking the track goes, "You know what today is?" And I was like, no. And he's like, "Oh, there's a few hundred runners who are about to come through here for the Routeburn Classic." And like, I'd never been for a run. I'd done classic school cross country and things, but hadn't ever sort of run recreationally. And so I got to the Harris Saddle, and it was snowing, and the first runner came through, and I was like, this is just wild, like such a sort of surreal experience. And then my thought quickly went to like, there's 300 other runners coming through here, and I need to get back to the car, and I don't really want to step aside for 300 people. So I started running down the hill, but of course, like, couldn't run. So it was like, run a couple of minutes, walk 5 minutes, run a couple of minutes, walk 5 minutes. But I think that was probably what planted the seed. Like, I was looking back and I was like, I hadn't been for a run at that point. It still took me another year or two to actually go and enter a race, but that was probably the start. And then decided to pick very relevant, but decided to pick the Motatapu Ultra as the first sort of proper race I ever did, which is not an easy one to start. So yeah, sort of stumbled across trail running and then sort of dove straight in.
So once you'd been pulled onto the trails, because it was that specific, it wasn't a person, it was a moment in time I mean, you didn't know anyone, I'm guessing, running the Routeburn. You didn't know, who was the hot favourite or what was happening. You just saw a bunch of people running in the snow thinking, this is cool. How did you go about applying yourself? Because and refreshingly, you're not an athletics dork. No offense to all the athletics dorks, love you all, but you're not. You didn't grow up running 800 meters. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think there were like a few kind of catalysts. I had a flatmate at the time who would just go out regularly and run. So I started joining him and got into that. And then, yeah, I don't actually know how sort of Motatapu or anything else sort of popped up, but I think it was just that, like, that mentality of like, I want to go and do something that I don't know I can do. And so, yeah, I think, Motatapu was well known. We've got some probably crazier races now, but like back then, I feel like Motatapu was, it was one of the toughest. It still is,
no
but
joke.
We've got people doing 200 miles and stuff now, but that 50K, it probably still is one of the toughest 50Ks in New Zealand. So it sort of stood out. It's like, let's do the ultra thing and let's sort of do the hard thing. But yeah, I didn't know anyone. And it wasn't sort of, I guess back then as well, it wasn't quite as popular as it is now, where so many people are doing this, and you do know someone who's done something like this. So I didn't have anyone who I sort of knew who was in the sport.
You now, what would you reflect on you then? What would be your reflections to then you?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just kind of the craziest, to experience that start. And I was deep, I was obsessed. I was telling you just before we got on this that, I was listening to every Dirt Church radio episode. I was probably dreaming of,
Poor bugger.
I was, dreaming of, maybe one day I might be able to, be near the front, or maybe I'd be able to get on a podium, but that was like so far away from where I was. So yeah, it's been quite a kind of crazy last year where a lot of that stuff has happened all at once, but there's been such a long period of time between that start and now. So I don't know, I would have definitely not believed you had you told me, back then that sort of I'd be sitting here, I guess.
I mean, you've done a lot of other cool stuff. This isn't this should not, nor should it be the pinnacle. But so how was that first 50K?
Yeah, I mean hard. It was, yeah, I don't know. There was a couple of notes that I wrote down actually. So Ali, your co-host, I actually spoke to Ali before the race because I didn't know anyone to get advice from. And she gave me advice that sort of stuck with me forever. Like, you've never done enough training before that first thing, or before that thing that you don't know how you're going to do. And she said something along the lines of like, you just need to think back to all the hard things you've ever done, like whether that's a physical thing, whether that's a mental thing, like all of that stuff counts as training. And I thought that was just like such perfect advice for, someone doing it for the first time, or someone a little bit unsure about if they could do the thing. And then I've got a friend who's maybe a little bit less empathetic, and I sort of said to him, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And he just goes, what do you mean? Like, once you start, what are you going to do? Turn around and go back to the start? Like, you'll just finish it. And I was like, you're right as well. Like, those two bits of advice, like sort of opposite ends of the spectrum, but sort of exactly what I needed. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about the actual day out there, but I do remember that sort of advice going into it. And I guess that feeling of like doing something that both I didn't know I could do, but I also didn't know I didn't know anyone else who had done something like that either.
It's a massive achievement. And it's a massive, we forget this, don't we? Because being involved in the culture, it becomes, and certainly not 200 milers. I mean, they are becoming increasingly kind of de rigueur, but it becomes the norm, doesn't it? It's what you do. But stepping out of that normie, or not even normie, I'm not sure what is normie anymore, but stepping out of that world into this, it's such a big head shift. Did you notice anything after you'd finished, like psychologically? Did it stretch your head or?
Yeah, I think, like, I think it did. I think, there's always that, like, it's like living life in a day sort of quote, where, like, the amount of things that you go through on one of those sort of ultra runs, like, you go from, you have this, like, I don't know, you set out to achieve this thing, and often those achievements take years when you're talking career or life things, and you never really get to realize them. It's a kind of a moving target. But I guess with some of this ultra running stuff, like, you go through all of those emotions in a day of, can I do this thing? Yes, I can. No, I can't. Problem solving, not wanting to be there anymore. This sort of, that sense at the end where you sort of, you know that you're going to make it, and you sort of feel that sense of achievement that sometimes is kind of hard to get elsewhere. So I think there was an element of that I sort of really got hooked on. It is just such an interesting way to sort of experience yourself.
It certainly is. And what was the time period between your first race and your next one?
So I think I did Motatapu, and then I did Kepler at the end of that year, one of the infamous flooded Kepler years where we were
I did that one too.
waist deep and had had fish swimming by.
That was bad, eh? I mean, it was that life in a day type thing, and when you were doing it, it was pretty incredible. But that water was freaking cold, and yeah, what did that look like for you? What was that first Kepler experience? Because I remember my first Kepler experience was exactly what you said at Routeburn. I was running up through the snow. I was like, I've never done this before. This is amazing. I actually shed a tear. I was so kind of overawed with everything. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kepler's got so much history as well that you sort of get the sense that you're at this, it's like New Zealand race royalty, which adds a really nice element to it too. And I think at this point I'd sort of convinced a couple of friends to get involved as well. So had a few other people there, which was really nice. But yeah, I mean, similar to Mototapu, like I was a fair way back. I was, wasn't setting anything alight there. Was battling away in the water with everyone else.
Yeah, that was that. Because the alternative course too, people go, whenever there's an alternative course, people go, it's not the real course. But that's a Luxmore grunt within a 30k tacked onto the top of it. Like, I remember getting down the bottom of the hill and just thinking, I may never, nowhere in Auckland, you're in Auckland, nowhere in Auckland you can 8k downhill.
Yeah.
There's nowhere you can run for 8 kilometres straight downhill like you can from the top of Luxmore Hut down to like Broad Bay. And I remember getting there and thinking like, I've actually forgotten how to run on the flat, and it's that. But I didn't know a single person, and I don't know about you, but I didn't know a single person who got to that aid station back at the control gates and wasn't like, I'm going to drop out because this sucks. This was I thought as much harder than the full loop. Did you go fully? Did you trip or submerge or go off the side of the trail?
Yeah, I think going off the side of the trail was mandatory, right? The sort of step off the edge and all of a sudden you're in the water.
Yeah, I went right under. It was horrific. It was still. And this woman, I sort of popped my head up, and this woman said, "You've gone off the side of the trail," like in a really sort of Jacques Cousteau kind of voice. I was like, "Thank you." Yeah, it's really, really helpful. Okay, you've done two of the big ones. You've done Mototapu, you've done Kepler. When did you start to think, I actually might be quite competitive at this?
Took a long time.
Yeah.
So I did like Mototapu, Kepler, Old Ghost, back to Kepler again. And through all of that, like I was, hours back from the front. Maybe those later results were maybe not quite representative. Like I think I was a little bit injured for one of them, and I'd started working with like a proper coach. So I was sort of, trying to do it a little bit better, but there weren't many signs from like a results point of view that I was getting much better. Maybe that was just sort of like delusion in my head for a while. But yeah, I think there were little things like, when you're training, you get to see that paces are increasing and various bits and pieces, but there was no sign there. I don't even think my coach at the time had any sort of inclination that I might be okay. I might be okay at this. So yeah, it took a long time. I think just before I left New Zealand, so I went overseas for a few years, but just before I left New Zealand, I went back and ran the Routeburn, and I think I got 5th in that. And that was sort of a point where the people in front of me were names that I knew of. And that was sort of the first time where I was like, okay, I've put together a race here, and maybe there is something there that I can sort of, like maybe there's something there. So that was 4 years.
Right, but 4 years is 4 years. And what was because you must have been sort of front quarter, like you said, your hours back, but everyone's hours back from like a Daniel Jones at Kepler. You must have been, you were front half of the mid pack, right?
Yeah. It
From
would
the
have
jump.
been like I think maybe 50th in that first Moto Tapu. So, that's an amazing result for a lot of people. And that's not a bad go for your first time.
That's not a bad guy, and that's that raw. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's raw effort. It's the enthusiasm of youth. It's also the enthusiasm of not knowing what you're really doing, because you can send it. But going from 50th to 5th, what was that first kind of? You're like, holy moly! I've actually done this.
I don't think that thought. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that thought's
Cracked
it's been so gradual. I think when you start off, not having that sort of early or instant success, the horizon of your goals, they're pretty, they're not big steps that you're looking for. It's like, I want to go a little bit faster, or I want to be in the top 30 or in the top 20. You don't have these big lofty sort of like, I want to be up here. So yeah, I think it was like, that was a moment where I was like, okay, I might actually be able to compete, which is, a slightly different mentality than like you're almost time trialing a time that you'd be really happy with. It sort of adds another dynamic, I guess, if you're actually racing against other people. But it wasn't like, I still wasn't thinking I'm any good at this, and I still would have been 20 minutes back from the guy at the front. It wasn't like, okay, I'm really good at this now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? When we say 20 minutes on what is Routeburn 34?
Yeah.
That's not nothing. 20 minutes and 100 mile is a lot shorter distance, but 20 minutes, you're right. That's that. If you're hauling, he or she is hauling just that little bit faster. What was it like, the experience of going overseas? Was that helpful for your running?
Yeah, I think it ended up being accidentally really helpful. So I went to the US for a while, but ended up in London. Classic Kiwi overseas setup, but London's obviously one of the worst places that exists for trail running. Like, there's not even a hill you can really run up. But that sort of forced me to just go, okay, what happens if, you train for a marathon? Because I still wanted to be running, and it just didn't make any sense to be trail running. So I guess sort of forced me to try and get faster, but also had the experience of could get faster while I was living in London, but had access to Europe and the Alps to both race, but also just go spend time over there in the mountains and in the huts. So it was sort of like this maybe perfect mix of maybe what we should do as trail runners, where we spend 90% of our time trying to get fitter and faster on the flat and 10% of our time in the trails, instead of what we love doing, which is probably 90% of the time in the trails and 10% getting fitter and faster on the flat.
It's chasing the dragon, right? It is chasing the dragon. You're always going for that next perfect sunrise, that next biggest peak. And I think you're exactly right. That notion of consistent hard work is what almost always pays the dividends. So on that, if we're thinking about training, and you got, so 4 years, and then you've gone from 50th to 4th, and then you're thinking, okay, I'm on the way here. This is something that I want to do. What's for you? What's one of your favorite sessions to do? What's something that tells you that you're fit?
I don't know. I guess maybe because I haven't come in that athletics background a little bit, I always want to have some level of comparison, or some sort of benchmark. And I often find that really difficult, that doesn't really exist. And I keep pushing my coach, can we just benchmark some things? I guess you get a feeling and a sort of vibe when you are training consistently that things are clicking and sessions are feeling good. I guess maybe one thing I've started doing a little bit recently before races is I'll simulate. This sounds so silly, but like I will simulate the climbs of the race on the treadmill, or like the first half of the race on the treadmill, and just sort of try and dial in the pace and the feeling and the understanding of like, what might this feel like. So going into the Routeburn last year and going into Spectacle, I'd basically set up the first half of the race on the treadmill, and would do that sort of to get ready before I'd go in.
Doesn't sound silly at all. I mean, it's preparation. Let's work back from Spectacle though, because 2025, quite the season you had, right? I'm looking first off the year, 6th at Tarawera 50k. You went off and you improved your position by 4 places at Routeburn. What was that like, winning Routeburn last year?
Yeah, the whole series of events last year were kind of wild. We can maybe jump into that in a second, but it probably actually sets up the Routeburn. So it probably sets up the Routeburn conversation even better, I guess. So yeah, moved back to New Zealand. Had sort of a pipe dream of making the world's team, but thought that was probably out of reach. Like I hadn't raced in New Zealand for 3 years. I didn't really know how I stacked up. I didn't really understand the selection process, but jumped into Tarawera and sort of had as good of a day there as I could have hoped for.
So like 6 places, like 3:35, right?
Yeah, and that was probably about 15 minutes faster than I thought I could go. So that was like okay, maybe I can compete here, like maybe I can compete back in New Zealand. And that sort of flipped the switch of like starting to believe for a world spot. But to get into that, because I hadn't been in New Zealand, I had to go and race 3 peaks in Dunedin, and was pretty aware that I probably needed to, get a podium or something there, because I didn't really have any other results in New Zealand that would stack up against other people who might be competing. And so I'm from Dunedin, didn't really run when I lived there, but it felt like, going home. I'd gone and recce'd the whole course, had family and friends all coming along to the race, like felt super fit, was, so nervous because there's not many races where you have sort of a result riding on it like that. Started off really well and then ended up in hospital. Ran into a tree at about 20 k's in the dark, and had to go and get a bunch of stitches. Luckily, I was just behind David Hounsmith, the ED doctor. So perfect guy if you're going to put yourself in hospital to be stuck to.
Where did you get stitches?
On the sort of side of my head. I won't go into details because no one wants to hear what the setup was there. But it was
fully do. But we could talk about it after.
Yeah,
I'm all about it, man.
Yeah.
I'm all about the gory details. But yeah. Okay, so how many stitches did you end up with?
There were 10 stitches.
Wow.
10 stitches. Yeah, and each person who sort of saw it. So first it was David, and then it was the ambulance people, and then it was the hospital. Sort of went, okay, cool. Like I can't deal with that. David went, you need to go and get that looked at. Ambulance people went, you need to go to hospital. Hospital people are like, okay, we need to sort this out. But yeah, I guess coming back to sort of that leading into Routeburn, like it's one of those things where I was gutted because it wasn't something in my control. Like, I would have run into that tree 10 times out of 10, like it just out of nowhere. We still had head torches on. But it meant that, to me, this sort of dream had gone, and being able to make the world's team was, 2 years away, and who knows what's happening in 2 years' time. So that sort of led into Routeburn, where I was like, I know I'm really fit. This is a race and a course that I love. And like, there's kind of nothing to lose here. This doesn't mean anything in terms of qualifications or rankings or anything. It's just like a chance to go and run on one of the best trails in the world and race. So that was a very sort of special day, I guess, to kind of come from finding the sport at Routeburn to, crossing the saddle and in first and sort of telling myself the whole way down the hill, like, you can do this. Like, you've thought about winning this thing for 8 or 9 years or whatever it was since you first kind of saw it. So it was pretty special.
That's amazing. And it's not as if, I mean, yeah, you sort of found the sport, but the sport actually found you because you just turned up on a random day. It's not like you went there on the day of the Routeburn to walk the track. It found you. What was that feeling like crossing that finish line?
Yeah, like I was sort of, I don't know, I was in shock a little bit. Like, it was just one of those moments where you just don't quite know how to put it in words. There was so much going on in terms of it being one of those moments where you're like, I've thought about this forever, but then there was also the disappointment of the 3 peaks and sort of, I had a bit of, I don't know, I was running on a mix of like, yeah, the disappointment, but then the excitement to have sort of ticked this thing that, I'd wanted to do for so long. And I don't know, I sat there for probably 10, 15 minutes, I didn't really have any words. Like, there were people crossing the finish line and full of words and doing shoeies, and I was like, head in hands, overwhelmed with sort of emotions, no idea what to say. So, I was at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, there's the shoey bell curve, eh? You're either a shoey person or you're not. And I think that, it is yours seemed like a really appropriate emotional response to such a hard one. And then I guess it's not on like Donkey Kong, isn't it? You had to submit your package to Athletics New Zealand for selection, or what was the process from there?
Yeah, so I guess after there's essentially the 3 peaks race was the last day of qualification, so Routeburn didn't count.
Right.
And at that point, I'd written off that there was any chance that I essentially had a Tarawera race and a couple of UTMB races overseas, but they weren't sort of overly impressive placings because of just how competitive it is. So I just, I was waiting for them to announce the team so I could put myself out of my misery and go, you're not going. But yeah, it got announced, and again, back in the state of shock of, I was just
no
like,
shoeies.
No shoeies. No, I was probably closer to a shoey on the Monday night when that got announced than I was after crossing the Routeburn finish line.
Wow, what was the feeling?
Such shock. But also, like, I don't know, it's one of those things that, as a kid growing up and you're playing sport in New Zealand, like, so many of us think of one day, I'd love to represent New Zealand. And so many of us think that for a bunch of years and then realize that that's probably not going to happen. And, that was the same for, the last 25 odd years until a year or two ago. And I went, maybe this is possible, which you just don't really have on your bingo card when you're sort of hitting 30 and haven't been at an elite level of sport before.
That's a hell of an arc. And it's funny, isn't it, with that whole representing your country thing or representing New Zealand. I think, and maybe it's because we're such a small space, that seems to transcend like cultural boundaries, I think. And I mean cultural, like if you're, you could be a right down the middle, like rootin' tootin' kind of jock kid who's into sports and rugby, and then you could be like a punk rocker or someone who's into, but it's that one thing. It's quite a uniting, that black jersey is quite a uniting feature for so many people. Hey, I wonder if that's the case in bigger countries, or if it's just that we're a bit of a crucible.
Yeah, I mean, we do have sport, it is such a big thing in New Zealand. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting point. Like, is that the same elsewhere? But it is such a uniting and sort of national pride thing, I guess, that we do have.
I remember putting on, we ran a registered not for profit. It was a half marathon. We lived next door to the Riverhead school, and we put on this race, Riverhead Rampage. And I think the first 2 years, we got such a lot of resistance from the community because it was like, you're clashing with Saturday sport. And I was literally like, this is sport on a Saturday. Like, it's Saturday and we're going to do sport. They're like, no, it's clashing with Saturday sport. No one will come. And it took a couple of years. But yeah, there can be that kind of myopic focus as well, which I'm not sure is so helpful. Coming into it at a relatively, and I mean, God, you're a lot younger than me, but coming into it at a relatively later age, has that given you any sort of different perspectives or?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, I guess now at least, is like, obviously you can keep doing this for a long time, and that's what makes, the sport, so fantastic. But I guess there's like, one, you're not burnt out, so everything is new and you're excited to do all the things, and the progression maybe feels quite different to someone who's come up in athletics or something else where, a lot of
Sports
it probably
robot.
doesn't feel as exciting. But then like now it's also an interesting sort of space to be, because there's like, I've got a number of years where hopefully I can get better, but there's also like a time horizon on it where, I can choose to prioritize this in my life a little bit, knowing that it's not going to be something that, 10 years from now, maybe even 5 years from now, is not like taking up as much of my life as it is today. And that's, I don't know, I've been quite enjoying that thinking of like, I'm choosing to put effort into this now, but also knowing that it's not something that I have to, prioritize as much for a long time.
It's a really good point. On that, with the, we talked about this place as a crucible, with the Aotearoa trail scene being so tight-knit, or even if you stretch it out, the elite athletics scene being so tight-knit, who are the runners that push you the most domestically?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I guess when I first started out, it was a lot of the guys who were like maybe at that sort of same level as I am now. Like obviously we had like Scotty Orker and we had Dan Jones and we have those guys, but they're like such a level above that it was a lot of the guys like, Chris Dunnell and Varjan Armstrong and like those people who were winning races in New Zealand that I would sort of look to and jump on Strava and see what they were doing. And then in New Zealand now, I mean, there does seem to be a really good community around it. I had Toby Batchelor up here in Auckland. So we were both living relatively centrally in Auckland. And that was really fun to be training with him for a while. There's not a lot more humbling than trying to follow Toby up any sort of hill. Just like not many people's bodies move like that up a hill. It's easy run and you're like hanging on for dear life. So yeah, there's a few people there. Even someone like, David Hounsmith, it's just like wild what that guy does. Week in, week out. I don't understand it.
He's understandable if you've ever worked in healthcare, because there are people like David Houndschmidt. I mean, obviously not everyone has that raw athletic ability, but I think it's that thing of the application to detail that in his specific job. But yeah, how he can he's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. And it's good that he didn't steer wrong and said, oh no, just keep running through it. He said, you need to get that head wound looked at.
Yeah, I think I ruined his race, but it was good of him to help me out.
He took an oath. He's got no choice. He has to. What was it like racing someone like Sam Harvey at the Spectacle? I mean, talk about a kid who is also not your typical athletics robot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like the guy is such a competitor. And I like had that in my head going in that I really wanted to win that race, but like few people want to win more than Sam Harvey. So that was sort of playing into like, how do I race this in a way that I'm nowhere near Sam Harvey with 5Ks to go? Because like I don't back myself against Sam Harvey with 5Ks to go if we're side by side. Like I just don't think I can hurt as much as he can hurt. So yeah, it was super interesting to race with him. Like even we were running in a pack for a while and he was making these like conscious moves to try and drop people. And then when we dropped someone, it'd sort of give it the, I thought we'd get rid of him. And then like there was a bit of like an aid station, like one of the bottles wasn't working. And so he filled up first. And I just see him out of the corner of my eye, just sprinting out of the aid station. It's like, I've got to go and stick with him. But that stuff it's so fun, right? Like those dynamics are something that you don't always get if you're not playing those tactics at the front. Like there are so many times where it's been like, I just want to finish this, or I want to do a better time than last year. And so having that opportunity to sort of race at the front is really, it's kind of really reinvigorating because you get to have this whole other dynamic where it's not just my run, it's other people's runs as well. And you get to see people and their tactics, and there's still that same camaraderie of like, we're all having a chat and getting to know each other, but you're also racing, which is super fun. And it's been a nice like new thing to sort of layer on after doing this for a few years.
Yeah, that sort of backyard mental state takes it to the next level. I mean, I've seen, and he's got one foot on the podium, he's got one foot in the grave. I've seen him and Craig Tor. I was there. They totally Alien versus Predated it out, and both is mutually assured destruction. They timed each other out, trying to psych each other out. Like that, no one won that year. Like it was like 2 a.m. We're standing in the field at Riverhead Forest, going like, "Come on, attention to detail," like. But this is it. I think it makes it more the sport less kind of sterile in a way. You kind of add that little bit of humanity to it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. How did it feel winning the trail champs?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. At that point of last year, I was just sort of in disbelief that the stuff was still happening. Like, it had just been sort of one thing after another, and I'd sort of, I was half expecting. You just don't expect, or I don't expect to turn up to these things and win them, let alone to have that happen sort of multiple times. Like I'm still turning up to that sort of race going like, I don't think I can beat Sam Harvey at the start line. Like I'm going to try, but like I'm not turning up to those things thinking that I'm going to win. So yeah, it was just sort of like the crazy year had just sort of kept getting crazier, and whether or not the national titles sort of make sense to win one is, that's pretty magic as well. Like that opportunity doesn't present itself often, so you'll take it.
Absolutely. What was it like banging into Ali at the finish line? This is the person that you reached out to, sort of where you knew zip about nothing, and went, "Hey, how do you do running?" And she'd given you this, this consultation. What was that like?
Yeah, that was it. How do you do this? How do you do running? I mean, so good, right? Like I don't think Ali and I had really spoken too much since that initial, obviously had seen her everywhere, but hadn't sort of, popped up and was like, I'm one of the 500 people that you've helped over the years get into this thing. But that was quite special to have it, her at the finish line and to be able to sort of say, you probably don't remember this, but, you were the person who sort of got me through that first run, and here we are 8 years later or whatever it is, and you're calling me into the finish line. So that was pretty special. Like, who she is and what she's done for this community is just incredible. So yeah, always good to see her.
And she did remember, because that's all she talked about for the next kind of, because it was a long day, right? Like we were at it all day, and she absolutely remembered, and I think it was quite cool. In fact, I was talking to her today, and she said, right at the start of his running, I did a consult with him, and that was what he referred to at the spectacle, and it gave me warm fuzzy seeing where he's got to with his running now. So it's cool, man. That must be pretty cool as a coach to be like, I knew that guy when he was when he didn't know nothing. Do you think having by that point put on the black jersey, do you think that made a difference to your confidence levels lining up at spectacle?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like, I don't know. I don't know if maybe the fitness that I put together to get ready for Worlds gave me some confidence, but I don't know if putting on the jersey made me feel any better than anyone.
I mean, metaphoric, not literally, not like, it's my cloak of ebon night, no.
No, I think it's like, I don't know, in a lot of ways that, I guess that experience, like, it validated a lot of the years and the effort that had been put in. Like, it feels like such a selfish pursuit at times, this running thing. Like, it doesn't benefit too many people other than yourself, or at least it doesn't feel like that a lot of the time. So, yeah, I don't know if, I don't know if it made me feel like I believed more, but it did give me sort of a level of validation and sort of, I don't know, made me sort of move the horizon a little bit as to what comes next.
I was listening to something yesterday when I was out on a run, and the person was saying that, we have this thing around balance in our life, and I think balance is really important. But to be balanced, you also need periods of your life where you are unbalanced, and that's where you are devoting. We've all thought about times when we've studied, times when we've pursued a goal, be that recreationally or in our kind of discretionary lives, like hobbies. I hate that word. I hate the word hobbies. It's kind of, it belittles the effort that you can put into something and be absolutely mediocre at it. But you have to have that time when that's just what you're doing. Hey.
Yeah. I think that, like, I don't know, there's that level of, I think you can put everything in or be obsessed with something for a period of time, and for that still to be balanced. It's like, especially if you can make that call of like, I'm going to do this at the expense of these other things, and accept that, yes, you can probably pick a couple of things. Like, there were times last year in that lead up to Worlds that things were not out of balance, but I'd made a conscious decision that there was one or two things that I could prioritize. And I think that, in those periods, that's sort of all you can do, right? You have to accept that there's going to be a number of things that you have to deprioritize to maintain some level of balance, or some level of being a good human in those periods.
Man, that's incredible. And what did it feel like to, and I guess the payoff to that, you've whittled it down to one or two things in your life for that period of time. What was that process of getting to the World Champs? What was that like?
Yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster as well, I guess. Like, I got announced in the team, and then the next week hurt something in my hip that didn't go away. That was then like MRIs, sports doctor, significant tear of something. So it was like,
brilliant.
here's this opportunity, and then it was like a week later I'm getting MRIs done that have a very real possibility of completely derailing that and stripping it away again. So like most things, you have something that looks good from the outside, and on the inside it's just chaos. So I did sort of a familiar thing with me of, get on the treadmill and remove too many variables to try and keep the body moving. And it actually came out okay. It's still, it didn't fix itself, but it didn't cause too many issues going into Worlds. But that was quite a fun process. It was like middle of winter in New Zealand. It was a good opportunity just to go head down for a while. I've got a bit of a setup at home that means I can train here. So it's just like, and I work from home as well. So it's like life was fairly focused for a while. Middle of winter, work from home, can train from home. Just boiled it down to the simple things for a while.
And then you're in Canfranc in summer. That must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty special. I went over with Toby sort of 3 weeks early, and we lived a pretty, I think, a life that both of us really enjoyed for a while, where it was like we were in this little village, a couple of towns down from Canfranc, and there's not a lot in the Canfranc valleys. There's only a bus that only runs 4 times a day. So every day was exactly the same routine of get on the 8:30 bus. You'd either run for an hour and get the 10 o'clock bus back, or you'd run for a bit longer, have a coffee up there, and then come back at lunchtime, and then we'd cook lunch. And athletics world champs were on at the same time, so we'd like cook lunch, sit down, watch the athletics, go for another run, cook dinner, go to sleep, and just did that for like 3 weeks straight. It was just such a simple life for a while, before the chaos that was world champs and being in with the team and, so much going on.
Living the dream. Do you think you could sustain it, or do you need more variety in your life than that?
I think you could sustain it for a while. But yeah, I think you need a little bit more. I think we romanticize that, like, what if I just lived in a mountain town in Europe and, did the simple things, and maybe that is the answer. Like, maybe we're all just too scared to go and do that thing, and it would be the best thing ever. And we tell ourselves we need more, so we keep living in these cities and don't do it. So who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I remember talking to, again, and not to name drop, but Dan Jones got stuck in Kenya. He went to Kenya
That's
to do
right.
the, like, I'm going to have bread and jam and, like, millet porridge and run at one of these things. And then it's like COVID, boom, you're here now. And he's like, I live in Kenya now. Okay. Wow. That's, yeah. I guess it's that thing, isn't it? But unbalance leads to balance in your life. So what do you make of Crater Rim? Now, that seems to be one of the most kind of resolutely grassroots, community-led races with the most bonkers terrain possible. How was that experience?
It's a cool race, how community-focused it is. It was my first time going down there, and I didn't know a heap about the race, but the way the community there turns up for it and the way they get so many people racing who you wouldn't necessarily always see at a trail race. And then little things like all the mountain bikers, out there stopping for their lunch and just like going nuts for the runners. Like, it's a really cool experience. Other little things like getting on the bus in the morning and then getting the ferry over, like it's got a really nice feel to it. But yeah, the terrain is deceptively technical and tough course. Like, I went and I only got there the day before, so I went and had a wee look around, and I was like, oh yeah, this is all good. Like, fairly open trails, and then there are some sections that are just like so so rough out there. But no, it's a really cool race in that respect. Like, it's a really good balance of things. It's a really like honest race and has a good mix and such a good feel to it.
Yeah, you're so right about the community engagement. I remember standing, because Rebecca, my wife, did it last year, and maybe the year before, actually. Sorry, she did it the year before. But we were waiting to come in. I'm standing with Rocky, and it's from the first to the last, everyone gets that same experience. Like, someone said, come up to him and goes, can we start taking down like a single bit of bunting? He's like, no, you can't. We're waiting till the end. We're waiting for everyone. And he turned to me and he goes, I know what that's like, to come in and, everything's been packed away and it sucks. And so we don't do that. And I just thought, that's right on, man. You've got your priorities straight there for every single person. It's so cool. And no one thinks about, or I didn't anyway, growing up in Auckland, I thought Christchurch was really flat. And most of it is, until you get to the Port Hills, where it sort of goes from one plane to another, eh?
Oh, it's great. Like, I'm not meant to be nice about Christchurch at all, being from Dunedin, but they've got a pretty good setup from town there, like bike trails, running trails, hills right there. It's not bad.
Yeah, no, I'm the same with the whole Auckland thing, and I got down there and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, you've got a really cool sort of burgeoning arts culture as well. Oh, cool. Bet it's not very accessible to get. Oh, no, it is. Okay, right. It's that thing, isn't it? It rocks your kind of preconceptions about what a place. How do you find, how long have you been living in Auckland for? How do you find that?
Yeah, I guess I've been here. I lived here sort of 5 years before I went overseas, and have been back like a year and a half now. And it's not the best place in the world for trail running, but we've got enough.
It's not the worst either.
It's not the worst. No, it's definitely not the worst. And we have, the weather and the climate here is pretty good. The access to things nearby is great. But I guess, I was sort of reflecting the other day, like, I've only lived in Auckland or London while doing this trail running thing. So those are probably not two places that you go, that's a really good place to live for trying to be a trail runner.
Well, I mean, you put in the theory to a test, because you're doing all right.
Yeah. I mean, it's still mostly running, isn't it? We're mostly running and doing a little bit of the trail side. So I guess I buy into that a little bit of more running makes you a better runner, and then you layer a little bit of the trail in.
That's that sweetness, isn't it? That payoff is the stuff that it's like we said at the start, it's that chasing. When you get to chase that dragon, it's pretty sweet. Hey, if you could run one trail, like any trail race in the world tomorrow, and I know that you're injured, I know, so let's pretend you're not injured. You can run one trail race in the world tomorrow. Which one would it be?
Oh, it's probably got to be something like Zagama. I don't even know, I'd probably be terrible there, but you just see the crowd and the atmosphere, and it just looks like, it's everything you want trail running to be, I think. Some crazy Europeans, just like some of those. We went and did a hike not far from there, and like, it's just such a foreign concept that trail running can be like a regional sport. Like, it's, in those locations over there, it's just what everyone does. It's a Saturday and there's families out trail running, and the whole town is just covered in trail runners. And so, somewhere like Zagama, where they just like live and breathe it and love it, I think that would be pretty special.
Rad. Jack, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for spending the time. Thank you for your generosity and your insight. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask you the question that we've asked every person who's been on Dirt Church Radio since we started in 2018, and that's, Jack Harris, what's been your greatest run ever?
Yeah, I should have been more prepared for this. It's just been, I don't know, there's been so many like each time it's like they don't feel better than the other times. Probably that, going back to that Routeburn experience, like it's that trail. I don't know how many times I've run on that trail just because I just love it. It is everything you want a trail to be. It is technical, it's beautiful, it's steep. There's some sections that you can run fast and flowy. And so I guess to have that experience of getting into trail running through it and then being able to come back a few years later and sort of feel like you're making a little bit of a step and then being able to come back again and eventually win it was pretty special. So yeah, it's probably that one.
It's a good answer. And hey, look, all the best in your recovery, and not wanting to get, again, too sort of predictive. Do you have all things being equal and everything going well, do you have a season mapped out?
Yeah, a little bit. So hoping to go back to Routeburn again in April, which was looking a little bit touch and go, but yeah, everything seems to be on the right track. So hopefully we'll go back there. And hopefully if convinced, it sounds like there's a few people on both the men's and women's side who are turning up. So it could be a fun little field this year. So that would be fun. And then hopefully go over to UTA, which I haven't done before either, and do the 50 over there. And then, yeah, nothing really planned beyond that at the moment. I guess we have a bit of a winter season, so it'll be nice maybe just not to have something on the horizon for a few months and see. There's, being back in New Zealand now, there's so many things that you would love to go back to. There's races like Old Coast or Motutapu or Kepler or any of the other races that we seem to try and squeeze into this like a 6-week period over summer where everything's on. So yeah, we'll work it out. We'll work it out after that. But yeah, there's so many things that are, I guess, exciting.
All right. Well, man, thank you so much. This has been excellent. And again, congratulations on a bumper year, and I can't wait to see what you get up to in the future.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you.
Dirt Church Radio is presented by me, Matt Raymond, Ali Pottinger, and our old mate, Andrew McDowell. We're on all the podcast platforms, so like, follow, and give us a rating. It really helps. We're on social media at Dirt Church Radio, and you can email us at dirtchurchradio@gmail.com. Now, don't forget to sign up to our Substack for a weekly newsletter and the Aid Station podcast. Don't forget to write in with your greatest run ever. We'd love to hear from you, and you can read about them on the website too. Thanks to our supporters, Further Faster, and our Substack subscribers and the DCR Aid Station crew. Stay tuned for our show in 2 weeks when we have another great guest lined up. Mā te wā.